Hello, hello, hello. This is Truth Be Told. This is Dr. Walter Aka and Dr. Akmal's back live in person again. So we're basically continuing this saga. I like to call it a saga. We can call it a journey of basically trying to understand ownership, trying to understand dentistry. And with you, you're so honest with everything that I was like, let's just bring it back on, continue this discussion. And we're doing it in little short bits just because I feel like people don't have the attention span to really listen to an hour. And I don't think anybody wants to listen to us for an hour. You know what I mean? So that's how we're doing it. Say what?
I want to hear us for an hour. Like I think
Exactly. Even you don't want to hear yourself for an hour. So it's all
it's
good. But yo, I want to ask you a question. I want to kind of talk about when it comes to dentistry. Dentists are very notorious for not being good partners, not being good at working together, right? And one thing that dentists I've realized is whenever they have a practice, instead of saying, "Oh, I have an associate that's really good and I want to partner up with them," they end up just saying, "Okay, the associate's here, they're doing really well." And then the associate hears from somebody or talks to somebody and says, "Oh, you should have been a partner by now. You've been working there for 5 years." But dentists don't want to give up that power. They don't want to give up a piece of that. And I want to ask you, like, what do you think about that whole dynamic where you bring in an associate, you hire somebody? Do you hire somebody that wants that kind of partnership or wants to go build their own or wants to stay temporarily? Like, what are your thoughts on that whole partnership where after somebody's been there with your office for a long time?
so I'll come at it from two different perspectives. One is just the general concept of what happens, and the second being like what happens in the major metro city. Because I think major metro cities, and that's what I'm kind of realizing. Because every time I go to a conference and talk to people and tell them my problems, and they're like, We don't have any of those problems." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like,
Yeah.
nah, people are just chill over here. So, from a general concept, I think it has to do with what your business mindset is, right? If your business mindset is, and a lot of doctors, it takes them a good 5, 7, 8 years of work putting their life and blood and sweat into their practice to make it into like, 8, 900, a million two to that level. And at that point, that's when you can theoretically start moving towards, like, about 800 plus is when you're like of production collections, whatever you want to call it. Now you're thinking about, hey, how do I expand more, right? Now the expanding more aspect, there's two aspects. One is like it's a decision made out of business. Like, okay, I'm moving towards becoming a business person. It's about expansion, but now I give up my dentistry. Then it works out really well. If your whole thing is this is my thing, I just want more money, and let's bring somebody else in, that's where the screw up happens. Is because once you move into expansion, you stop doing the job that you did. You have to stop being a dentist and you have to switch over to being a business person. And I think that that shift is something that I think a lot of doctors don't want to do because it requires a whole mind shift change. And they've been doing the same thing for a year, which is I control everything. And that giving up control is a difficult thing because when you give up control, guess what? The new person is going to mess up. 100% they're going to mess up on it. And you're going to lose money from it.
Well, so okay, not get so let's just say that you give them 10%, 20% of the practice. You still have 80% majority control, right? So why is that so difficult for people to dentists for dentists to wrap their mind around just giving up a
I,
little bit of control to make sure that the person stays with you for a long time?
yeah, I don't think 20, 30% is sufficient because that's
Oh,
not a
for the other person.
it doesn't get them committed. Like it's a
Hmm.
whole like you gotta put skin in the game type thing. The other person needs to put their life savings into it. If they're only putting buying like $1 million practice, 20, 30 is 200,000,
Hmm.
right? Bank will fund you like 70% of that. So you're only putting in like 30, $40,000. Like whereas the other guy put in like all of his life savings into that practice, right? So the dynamic is poor, right? Because you're always like, well, you haven't really put much in, and the other guy's like, the associate's like, well, you're making most of the profit. If you want to
Mm.
move into expanding out, right? Like whether it's like multi-location, your own thing, you're getting other people because that's the whole point of business. You get other people to do your stuff so you can do stuff that's more important. So the other associates that comes in my mind, needs to take over 80, 90% of your job. Like he should be
Mm.
making all the production. Your job is to figure out how to expand it even more. But you hear about all these doctor, associates being like, yeah, the doctor, he keeps all the implants and the
Right.
bridges, gives me fillings. Like, of course, that's a shit dynamic because you're still trying to be a dentist and you're not becoming a business person.
So you're saying whenever someone brings in an associate, they should literally be trying to get themselves out of the practice.
They should be trying to hand over as much of it to them especially the production aspect. Like that's
Okay.
why you're bringing them in. It's not so like if, and that's my point. What I'm trying to say is like doctors who still want to be doctors, they want to do doctor stuff. They want to do good procedures. They want to do the cool, fun things, and they want someone else to do all the bitch work, which is it's one concept of doing it. It is what I mean. That's what all
No,
associates
it's the truth.
are
It's just it's so beautiful to hear you actually say that because
about,
it's the truth.
right?
People just want to
No,
hire somebody. Oh, you just came out of school. Go ahead and do all the shit that I don't want to do. And what a
exactly.
horrible mindset because now you got this kid, and I say
Mhm.
kid because they're younger than us. You got this kid coming in thinking, oh, I can do everything. I'm an implantologist, I'm a cosmetic dentist, and you're telling them to just do bread and butter filling, which really is something that 70% of people need, but
Yeah.
they don't think like that either. So that associate's mindset is I want to be this big bad cosmetic dentist, this big bad, implantologist. When one, they really don't have the skills for it, but they also want to feel like they can get to that point. And then you got the we'll call it the owner doctor, basically saying, nope, you do all the crappy stuff. I put in my time. Now
Yeah.
it's my time to do all the fancy stuff that I'm taking CEs and going to Cuba and Puerto Rico and all that stuff to do.
Yeah, it's a poor dynamic. Like my point is once again, it goes back to like the doctors are not business people. We
Right.
don't understand how to expand and we don't know, like we've never been taught like how does expansion work? How does like franchising work? Like theoretically, if you want to have multiple practices, that's the model you're working off of. In a franchise, the main owner doesn't work inside any of the businesses. They need to bring in competent people. And the thing is, even setting up an associate, the thing is, so I've taken since I owned my business about 3, 4 years ago,
Mhm.
I've gone through three different associates, right? I had a couple that came straight out of dental school. I had one that came out of residency plus a year, a bunch of different things. And over the course of 10 years in my own practice, I've had in the practice that I've worked in 10 years now that I own, we've had probably 7, 8 different doctors that went through it. And I was like very intimately uh in that work of what happened because I was very
Right.
close to the owner and we went through it together. We were trying to teach these docs, and it's the mindset differential that is the problem.
Wait a minute. Okay, so you're saying that in your mind, most people leave a practice because of the mindset of the owner?
No, it's the difference between the two. The associate doesn't understand the business, and the owner thinks that they can roll over the associate until they've proven themselves. And the issue I think we've spoken about before is associates are coming out being like, "Where's my 200,000?" And we're
Right.
like, "It doesn't exist." Like, I don't know what the hell someone told you. Like a few, like certain places do, and those places you're gonna work like a dog, and the way you can
Right.
do it, like Medicaid practices, yeah, work in that, you'll make 250, 300. You're going to be seeing 30 patients a day and doing fillings in 10 minutes each. And like you'll be dead by the time 5, 6:30 comes around, but you'll make that money. Making 250 like they used to teach us back when the prosto, yeah, dude, you just do one case, man. One like 20 unit case every day, and we just sit for 4 hours and we make 400,000. So where are these cases? Like, they don't exist. Like it's a rare. It's like the same as like the guys driving the Ferrari. Just work hard. You can get a Ferrari too. Entertain all those guys. Like no 1% of the people are gonna get it. Even if
Right, right,
100,000, the 1% suddenly ships to 500,000. Then right?
right.
1% is always going to be the 1%. It doesn't matter what the numbers are.
All right, let me ask you this, and this is something that I've been, I think you and I have maybe talked about,
Yeah.
but I want to ask you, do you think that dentists, or at least new graduates, dentists in general, are very naive to think that, what they make is not enough? Or do you think it's just the environment that they're in where they see other people doing well financially and they're like, well, why aren't I doing it? Right? Like an associate that comes out of school, brand new grad, they're thinking, well, I know this dentist that I follow, or I know this doctor who has like you said, a Ferrari has all this stuff, and they're like, well, why don't I have that? Do you
Yeah.
think it's just kind of like an ego thing, or what do you think gives that mentality that they deserve this when they haven't earned it at all, but they deserve it?
I think there's a twofold thing. The one part ends up being do they deserve it? And I think throughout the last 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 years, doctors deserve the pay they got because they worked and they studied and so they got what they got, right?
So you said
Now,
that doctors deserve the pay that they got.
no, whatever they got, sorry, let me just say that. So what they
Yeah,
were getting was what they were like, yeah, this is a good salary for a doctor, right? Because
right.
everyone else's salary was so much lower than theirs. So comparatively, right? Even if they're only making 150, if everyone else made 30, 40, 50,000, they're like, yeah, I'm doing well.
I'm good.
Now, when you got pharmacists making 150, you got hygienists making 100,000, you have, just people like plumbers making 110, truckers making 140. Now all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I need to be that at least X percentage above the
Mm.
general blue collar. So like as a doctor, I should be earning 300 now because
Because
everyone's
they're
earning
comparing
100
themselves to
to the general
laborers.
public, right? Yeah, because we're like, we have a professional degree. We
I
should be earning more
see.
money, right? And it makes sense because for the longest time, doctors, lawyers, they did earn more money. But now businesses, Instagram, all kinds of stuff, people are earning the same money. And they're like,
Right.
wait, if this 20-year-old is earning 150 a year, what the hell is this bullshit, right? That I
Right.
must be, then my value should be 300 or 400, even a general dentist,
Well,
which makes
here's
sense.
a question. Here's a question for you though. I
Yeah.
know, and I'm gonna speak for myself. I know that I have a good friend of mine, one of my best friends. He works in a steel mill.
Yeah.
And I say this every single time I talk to him. My man works way harder physically than I will ever do in
Yeah.
dentistry. So if he's getting paid 150, I have no qualms with that whatsoever. Now you're right. If I see a TikToker, Instagrammer doing stupid shit just to make the same amount, now I'm irritated.
Yeah.
But I don't think dentists put everything in perspective. I get it. No, we lost our 20s because we were in school, da da da. But I still say the same thing. What have you done to earn what you think you deserve?
Well, they're like everyone's answer would be I spent 10 years and spent $300,000 to get this degree. And you can say I wasted, but no, I spent 10 years working my god at proving myself or proving to everyone that I'm better than everyone else. That's what we do from
That's your mind. That's their mindset. They're
no, because
special.
it's not just the mindset, it's that we've done it from high school to college to dental school to like we've beaten out every
Intellectually.
however whatever
Yeah,
the
intellectually. I mean, you can't say that you're better than a football player
I'm
physically.
saying
You can't.
is
I'm talking about intellectually. That's what you're saying,
no.
right?
I'm talking about like, and with football players, the same thing. It's like, hey, if every time there's like from high school to college, if you hit all the way to the NFL and you
Right.
defeated every other athlete, right? Because
Right.
we ended up defeating every other person from high in a college, like what Bio 101, like at GW, we had what 10 classes, 10 Bio 101 courses with 100
Right.
plus people, right?
Yeah.
That's 1,000 people.
Right. And then organic is
1,000
like
people. Organic is
organic is like 300. Yeah.
right, right. So we had to beat 700 people just to get to organic. Organic,
Right.
out of those 300, what, 10, 20 people got into medical dental, right?
Right. I hear
So
you.
like that, so because we've done it consistently, what they told us, do be better than all these people because this is going to earn you money, right?
Okay.
It worked until the last 10, 15 years when suddenly business really blew up. And now there's so many different ways where you can make money in America and they do almost equal to you without and so there's a bit of like I think that's the first part where they're like but I deserve this and it's what they were told, right?
Right. And I hear you, but here's the part that I don't think people are considering is dentists are also doing things against their own goodwill. Dentists are doing things that just makes no sense, right? Dentistry in general. Think
What do you
about it.
mean?
You've increased the number of schools. So now you've actually put more providers into the market. Supply and demand is simple, right? You have somebody demand something, they demand dentistry. You supply. Do you know why like Burberry and all those like luxury brands stay so expensive? It's because they limit what supply is out into the market. Ferrari and all that. They limit what supplies in the market. If you basically keep opening up dental schools and people are willing to pay whatever you charge. Like for example, USC, they're saying that USC is going to hit $800,000 this tuition. Yep, from this year to when they graduate in 4 years, these kids are going to pay $800,000 just to go to school.
Dude, as a great Bernie Mac said, some of my bitch. Out of your mind. What?
Right.
800?
Right. So not only are you willing to pay and you're showing to people that you're willing to pay, right? That's not the patient's fault. Insurance is screwing you over continuously. So they're paying you less for what you do and what you know. So
Yeah.
that's also bringing it down, right? So then tell me what dentist, the ADA, the Dental Association, anybody has done to help people actually do well financially.
So I'll say this, and I'm not 100% on this. Like I've
Please.
heard some. So I used to be fairly proud of the fact that hey, the dental and medical community are different than the law community because they just keep pumping out lawyers, and now they have to figure out ways to make money, right? And that's why the
Right.
law system is so jacked up. The yeah, the ADEA and whatever AMIA, I guess the American Medical Education, whatever. I'm sure
Yeah.
similar thing to that. They had historically limited how many doctors come out because they didn't want to overpopulate
Makes
it.
sense.
Now the problem I think that ended up happening is it may have increased a little bit more than the population can handle, but the problem is all the doctors are going to Chicago.
Yes.
They're going to New York City, right? No one's going to bumfuck Pennsylvania, which is where because like they're basing it off the total population of the state. All the graduates from West Virginia, they're like, we don't want to be in West Virginia. No one wants to be in Wheeling. Like
That's it. That's
Wheeling,
it.
so it's not so much that I think that so when you say that, oh, they
So,
haven't done anything, they've tried to maintain it. It's just we as doctors don't want to go where we're needed. We want
ah,
to go where we want to live, and now there's a huge competition, and then you're like, well, welcome to capitalism. Now deal, right?
so basically what you're saying is that we've actually, again, and I say this, we've actually caused our own
Yeah.
problem again. If
Mhm.
we were to say, okay, cool, you doctors aren't allowed to be here, you have to spread out a little bit more, then it wouldn't look like there's such a need for dentists in the rural community, which wouldn't allow dental companies or dental groups or whatever to start up and say, you know what, I need to open another dental school because we have a need for help
Yeah.
in the rural community, right?
You can make 300,000, dude. Just go work in like a little town in Ohio.
But no
Easy.
one wants to do that because it's not
Right.
sexy.
So you have it, but like, so this is the same thing as like, like when you're dating in a major metro city and be like, nah, there's because there's a lot of competition. Go to a little tiny town and you marry the girl across the street. She's nice, sweet, everything works out well.
I
If you
don't understand why you had to sound
models,
like I don't understand why you had to sound like an old timer villain. Yeah, she.
yeah, see, yeah.
Yeah,
You
why?
got a dog next to the street, see?
Where are the girls? Yeah.
But my point is like that
Yeah.
this is a function of capitalism, right? Like what you were talking about. We're poor businessmen, and like with us, there's like that entitlement aspect that yo, become a doctor, you'll always get a job. Yes, a high paying job, no, right? You can't be like in an area which is super saturated and expect to. Oh, a doctor has a default. That's government workers. Government workers have a default salary. It doesn't matter where they work. You
Right.
can work in New York City. You can work in
Right.
Ohio.
Right.
Doctor is a capitalistic aspect, and if you choose to go in a super, and that's a heavily, and that was one of the mistakes I made when I purchased my practice. I was like, oh, it's a great city, tons of people. I'll just make money, and then afterwards,
Right.
oh shit, I got to really work at this, as opposed to my friends who were like, what are you talking about? I just have my website and people just come to me because I'm one of three doctors in this whole
That's
city.
it.
Like, of
That's it.
course, it's gonna work easy.
Right. So okay, so it's our fault. I'm so glad that you said it's our fault, and I think a lot of these doctors they come out of school, they graduate, and they go, well, why aren't I getting this? Why aren't I getting that? Well, one, I don't think you deserve it. Two, look where you live. If you can drive in a mile and you see like 50 dentists,
Yeah.
you might not want to work there.
Right.
I know it's not cool to have to drive a further out or live somewhere where you're like, oh, well, I don't have, a big mall, or I only see one traffic light. That might be where you'll make the money. And guess what you can do? You can go on nice vacations. You can you can come back to the city. But people don't think like that. To your point, they don't think like that because they're young, right? They graduate school, they're young. They're like, I want to live in the city and I want to hang out with my friends and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, cool, do that. But don't forget that comes with a lot of cost too on every avenue.
Yeah, and it's part of the same thing that's happening in any like every society that gets to a very high level, the people just get lazy and they expect stuff, right?
Right.
The entire Western civilization is running through that same thing. People in Pakistan, Nigeria, so and they're like, dude, I will do whatever I have to make money,
That's
right?
it.
Over here, they're like, but I deserve money,
That's
you know? And it's just like it's all
sure.
across the Western civilization. You go to Europe, like I was down in
We're
Iceland.
entitled.
Yeah, and like the people in Iceland are like, well, of course I should get like 4 months of like paid maternity leave. And I'm like, no, who's paying for it? Like everyone should. And I'm like, well, I guess, but like it doesn't work in a
Right.
pure capitalistic society because someone's gonna undercut you. And maybe I don't know how the end goal is, but like right now, people just it's the same with everyone.
All right, let
Like,
me ask you this then. Let me ask you a question. And this is now we're going to kind of get a little controversial, but you know how people were talking about forgiving um
debt.
student loans.
Yeah.
You signed up to go to USC, and we're gonna help the student. So this is a scenario: the student signed up to go to USC, and we're gonna say that that was the only school that they got in. So at the end of 4 years, they're gonna owe $800,000. But they want the government to basically say, "Cool, we'll eat that." What do you think?
I think student loan forgiveness is the the result we have to deal with for poor planning in financial aid,
Mm,
right? In as far as like the US government,
break that down. Break that
the
down.
US government just gives financial aid to whoever they want, whatever you want to do, right? You want to get a $400,000 degree on sociology that earns you $30,000 a year. They're like, cool, you can have it here. And then the rest of and now we're like, the student comes up, like, but I can't pay this back. You have to help me because like I'm working, but I can't. Because no, we should have never given them that. Like,
That's it.
or like get the Army Corps of Engineers, get the CIA, FBI put together, be like, which jobs does America need in the next 10 years? And then the government be like, okay, these are the degrees that we're willing to give you loans for. Any other degree you want to do? Sure, pay for it yourself. And then watch the universities reset themselves real fast.
That's it.
Because like right now, if a university can put out some bullshit degree like Simpson's like philosophy 101,
Wait a
like
minute. Start off with
have it.
that was a great course. Do you understand how in depth Homer Simpson was and all the predictions that came about? Come on.
Exactly. But that's my point is that if the government is paying for that, and then later on you're like, well, we should have to pay these because they made a stupid mistake. Like partially it's like you give same as a father or like your father, if your daughter every time she's like, hey, I want to do this, you're like, sure, 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 sure. And later on she's in tons of trouble because she never learned how to use finances properly, didn't know how
Right.
to make good decisions.
Right.
Now you got to bail her out
That's it.
afterwards. Not because of her, because she's dumb. She's a kid, right? 18, 19, 20-year-olds are dumb. They don't know anything. And you give them free reign to take on $200,000-$300,000 of debt
That is true.
and be
That is right.
surprised that they made stupid decisions and blame them for it. Same as blaming your 7-year-old, right?
Right.
You don't know. You're the adult. You're
Right.
supposed to know
No,
how to
you
guide them.
man, you know what? You're so right. So let me tell you how I remember that whenever student loans, like the paper would come in to the school,
Yeah.
and they would just call us to the office, come in and fill your form out for next year. Cool. You just go there and you're like, okay, what do I need to sign?
Yeah,
I never sat there and said, let me calculate. And most people don't even tell you that you don't have to take all that money.
Yeah.
Right? They don't tell you that. They just go, here's the money that they're gonna give you. And they go, sign this. No one says you can cross that out and say, I only want this amount. So you
Yeah.
basically sign on the dotted line, literally 2 seconds. maybe 5 minutes if you decide to talk to the person that told you to sign the paper. And then
Remember
we
when
walk
yeah.
away.
No, and that's what I did. Remember when we were in residency and you had that little bitch condo with the boudoir in it, and I had that super nice condo, right? The reason was because I just maxed out all my loans, and I was like, "Look, let me get a super nice condo. Like I have the money." And then I'm like, "This is great." I'm like, "I don't know why Walter has this little bitch condo." And then, like, of course, 4 or 5 years later, I come out and I'm like, "Wait, you want me to pay how many $1,000
Right.
a month? Like 4,000, like straight to you, and I don't even get tax write-off on that?" They're like,
Bro, let
"You
me tell
signed
you,
it."
I think people need to know that I lived basically in the basement of
Yeah.
the apartment, and across the street, literally within the same, because the apartment complex owned like a condo, and I was in the basement across the street, and Dr. Akmal was literally in the, like, what was it, like the 12th floor
Yeah.
of like this condo, that he basically would say hi to Gertrude as he came out. And I'm saying hi to the bum, that like lived next to my window.
Did you have like a Asian or Chinese like person that used to sound like Chinese cooking all the time in there as
Yep,
well?
yep,
Yep.
and yeah, and if there was a fire, I would have to go upstairs instead of outside. I could see the floor level in my window. But
Yeah.
that, we laugh about that, but it's true, man. Like people
But
don't
you
know
made the
how to.
correct decision, right? You didn't max out your loans to
Right,
try to pay for
right,
that.
right,
I maxed everything out because in my mind I was like 50, $80,000 a year. Sure, why not? Like you're just giving it to me? Done.
right.
It wasn't until I came out I was like, ah, fuck.
That's it. And the funny thing is, was, again, until someone told me you don't have to accept all this.
Hmm.
And then I did the math and I was like, well, I can live off of less.
Yeah.
So I'll just take less. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then I also learned about, hey, the interest is right there. It tells you the interest. And it's like, I think at our time, it was like 6%.
Yeah.
This is like middle to early 2000s. It was like 6%. So I was like, 6%, that's a lot, right? And of course, you don't know relative. Like now you're thinking 6% is a lot, but back then we are like, oh, 6%, that's a lot, right? No? Okay, cool. Let me sign. And so I think a lot of dental students should be told, hey, you don't have to accept all this,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And on top of that, the schools need to really get their shit together when it comes to how much they keep raising tuition.
Well, I don't know if you actually had that when you came in your first year in dental school. Did you have a financial planning like session or not session, but like in your class? So here's the thing.
Bro, we had a fraternity barbecue. That's as that's as much as we got when it came to anything.
Like,
We
yo,
had
don't get your financial planning was like, yo, bro, don't get a bitch pregnant. Like that's
that's
all.
it. Well, there it is. Yeah. No, our financial planning was literally how much was it for me to get into this party. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah, bro.
No, but like we did, right? So we had a guy come in and he went over financial aid, how this works, stuff. But he didn't even talk about how much you should take. And all he said was like, hey, you guys are making money. It's going to be tough. Make sure you take all your credit cards, put them in the freezer, right? Because you don't want to use your credit cards for the next 4 years. That was the extent of the entire advice, right? It was not about, by the way, I know you guys can take out 60, $70,000 of FELPR loans. I forget what they were
Yeah, it
anyways.
was a federal grant. Yeah, the
Yeah,
federal
you can take it out, but he's like, you don't need to take the least amount you can because the consequences of a $200,000 loan, this is how much you're going to pay
That's it.
every month. And if you're only making 10,000, guess what? 3,000 goes away to taxes. You got 7,000. 3,000 goes away to loans.
Loans.
You got 4,000. So basically, when you come out, you'll be living like a $45,000 a year earner.
That's
Like
it.
that's what's coming at you if you take
That's
$200,000.
it. That's it.
No one told us any of that, right?
Right.
I'll take responsibility because I should have done the math, right?
Right.
But
Right. No, no, no. Yeah.
aspect, you can say the 18-year-old, like, why did you go to Harvard for like, psychology? What, right? You came out with a
Right.
master's in psychology from a Harvard and you were in that, like you were dumb. And they're like, yeah, technically they should have. But this is the aspect of how much do the people who have knowledge are actually guiding the people,
True.
younger people
True.
proper, right? If
True.
they don't, then guess what? The older people who have all the money, you're gonna have to deal with the consequence, like the massive debt we have, student debt, the massive aspect of credit card debt. The people are gonna have to pay it at some
Hmm.
point.
And
Which,
it's so funny because people don't realize this. There are no more rankings of schools. Remember when dental schools used to be ranked? It was based on
Yeah.
how much research money they were getting. It
Right.
wasn't based on the fact that they're good or they're teaching you such amazing skills or anything like that. That
Yeah.
means absolutely nothing. I say this to everybody. Get into the cheapest school you can possibly get in because when you get out, you're still going to be worthless,
Yeah.
completely worthless. You're going to know enough. And I say this, and people get upset, but you're going to know enough to not hurt anybody. That's every single school.
Yeah.
There's some schools that be like, oh well, I got to see more, patients, and I got to do more of this and more of that. But you got to do just enough to be competent. You're
Yeah.
not going to be an implantologist. You're not going to be an orthodontist. You're not going to be an oral surgeon. Oh, but I did 50 extractions. Well, guess what? An oral surgeon does 50 extractions in a week. You did that in 4 years.
Yeah.
You are not going to compare yourself to them.
No.
But these kids come out and think that they're so good because I did 100 extractions. That was 100 extractions in 4 years.
Yeah. So that part I will blame the ADA for.
Oh, I blame the
Like
ADA for a lot. I
100%.
blame the
No.
schools for a lot. I think
Well,
they're ill prepared. They're not preparing these kids for anything.
no, in as far as like the concept of like there's no need for specialists, that everyone can do everything.
Mm,
The aspect like in medicine, it's still pretty defined. Like don't cross your lane. Like you don't know how to do that shit. Doesn't matter if you're an MD or not, you're not allowed to touch that stuff, right?
mm.
Because you don't have in the AD has done a shit job of maintaining like higher levels of
Differentiation.
differentiating between more difficult procedures versus simpler procedures and ones that require a higher level of understanding. So implants and all this, one thing I was trying to talk to a friend of mine about was like, why is it that I'm better at it than another GP? And it's not just because my hand skills are better or anything like that, or that I've done more. It's because part of the learning process in residency, and I'm sure you remember that also, is we took courses, or not courses, we had classes where all we did was read research papers.
Right.
In dental schools, we never read research papers. So coming out, we just reading, we were taught how to look at evidence of the newest stuff. And as specialists, we're literally at that edge of, well, I know how to do this shit. This has been proven. This part, I have no one knows exactly what we're doing. We're going to give it a shot different ways. So at least with the specialists, they spend time in reading constantly about, hey, this guy in like, Switzerland is doing this stuff. Oh, that's interesting. Those are the results he's getting. This part over here is doing this. And we're able to evaluate evidence and make a logical decision on, okay, let's try this in this area. But remember, with specialists, we're always on the cusp of like, I don't really know 100% this is going to work or not. I'm going to give it my best. Whereas now you have those same procedures being done by other doctors in dentistry who have not had that same level of knowledge set of that ability to discern different scientific studies, right? They're just like, well, what is the latest conference I went to? How did they do it? Okay, I'm just going to do it that way for every case, right? Whereas like I separate every case between, okay, this one, I'm going to use this type of membrane. I'm going to use this kind of graft. I'm going to use this kind of surgical technique instead of this. I'm going to be moving the tissue this way. Why? Because I've read all kinds of different cases. So the thing is with that, when the ADA never like completely, but like, hey, everyone can do everything,
Mm-hmm.
they never put into place that protection aspect of that knowledge base. Hey, you need to have this knowledge before you do that.
Mm.
And so like that's one of the reasons I think, and that part I will call the ADA out on and be like, you guys, it's not about protecting the specialist, it's about protecting the public.
Hmm. Well, okay. Well, so here's a little pushback. We had my brothers on this podcast, and I remember them saying, "Well, we don't know the difference between a specialist and a general dentist. I'm going to the general dentist, so why can't the general dentist do everything?" That
Right.
was their argument because they want it's ease, right? There are corporations that really hone in on everybody is basically coming to your office, so you get everything done in one office, and
Sure.
that's what they're realizing that patients want. At least they want that ease, right? So how do you explain that to patients when patients are saying, "I want to literally just go to one office and that's it"?
Right. So this is the difference between like the with the government or the power that be, sometimes they know better than the general public.
Well, but most people say the government doesn't know anything. They
Right.
don't know
Well, and
shit.
I get that. But
Right.
like the higher the governing boards of the medical fields, like they need to be aware that, hey, just because everyone wants this, it's not in their best interest. And this is why, like doctors and lawyers, we have what's referred to as a fiduciary responsibility, which means I don't give a shit what you want. I will give you what you need. This is only something that's specific to financial planners, lawyers, and doctors
Do
because
no
we
harm.
have a knowledge set. Yeah. A plumber, you can go to plumber and be like, hey, I want you to do this, this, and this. He's like, sure. And he'll just do it. And afterwards, everything goes to shit. And he's like, you told me to. I got my money. Fuck off. Right? Someone comes to you and be like, hey, put like I made this wooden implant. I want you to put this in my mouth. I'll pay you $10,000. You do that, he will sue the shit out of you. Why? Because he doesn't have or she does not have the knowledge set to define how medicine needs to be run. And so
Mm,
the government will come after you.
mm.
It was your responsibility to know more than the patient. And so I think this aspect, and this is where I'm saying is we have like the ADA or like the ADA, the dental boards in every state have failed the public because it's like giving children be like, yeah, go buy whatever you want. Like, no, you can't have chocolate.
You so you're
You can't
telling me
have
my
everything.
kids aren't going to eat chocolate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? They're
And
actually
that's
going to
what
eat
it is.
vegetables.
Yeah, and so like you said, with the public being like your brother's like, why I just want everything in one
Yeah.
sitting, right? It's the same thing with IV sedation. Like I don't do IV sedation right now at all.
Yeah, I
I have
stopped doing
a
it.
certification,
We both stopped doing that. Yeah,
right?
it was
And the
annoying.
reason was my brother's an anesthesiologist. I had a long discussion. He's like, you guys don't know what the fuck to do if shit goes to hell. You
That's it.
don't, right?
That's it.
And so like, and 99% of the time, nothing bad happens,
Right.
right? But guess what? Every patient's like, well, I just want to be put under. By the way, every year 4 or 5 people die going in for wisdom tooth surgery
That's it.
and never come out of it. Like there is a consequence to IV sedation, right?
Right.
Like every one time we bring you to the brink of death, we gotta bring you right back, and sometimes it doesn't work. So just because every patient wants IV sedation, that's because everyone just wants one dentist to do everything for them. It is the doctors that have to make the decision, be like, no, 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 we have to limit, especially in a capitalistic aspect where greed it'll come into every person. It'll come into lawyers, it'll come into preachers, it'll come into
Right.
imams, it'll everyone when money comes involved and you have capitalistic,
Hmm.
greed will take over. And so someone needs to be at a higher level to be like, no, 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 no. You're not allowed. No chocolate for breakfast every day. You have to. And it's purely because of how our
Then you know what?
it's a medical profession, yeah.
I'm gonna ask you this then. So then why doesn't, and this is my last question, and we'll
Yeah.
wrap it up here, but why doesn't the ADA step in and say, hey, insurance, you're fucking these dentists over. So you need to cut that out as well.
Same reason you can't go up to all the young people and be like, you need to study because they've gotten used to doing what they do for the last 10, 20 years. Eventually, like all the doctors have gotten used to it. Like there's other organizations pushing it. They're all making money on it. And they're like, wait, if the ADA comes in and be like, we can't do that, guess what? There's gonna be tons of general dentists who have like a big part of their production based on specialty procedures, right? Not to say that they don't know how to do it, right? If you have the education, you've spent the time, fuck yeah. But if you on carte blanche go across all doctors, guess what? They're gonna get pissed.
So you're saying that, okay, well, my solution would be that the ADA tells insurance, well, you know what? If a general dentist is trying to do implants and they don't meet these criteria, then you don't pay them.
Same concept. It doesn't matter how you do it. The
Right.
dentist is gonna get pissed because you're taking away money,
And
right?
dentists and the general dentists are 60 to 70% of dentistry.
And they have power, right? So
Right.
if your daughters scream like nobody's business every time you told them no, right? But they've gotten used to screaming and they just get whatever they want. Later on, when they do something, you're like, absolutely, no, no, this is wrong. They'll default to what they've always done, and now you
Right.
no longer have control over them,
I,
right?
so then what, so then, I mean, you're saying that there's a problem with people doing things that they're not trained to do, but then there's no solution because you're saying the ADA can't do anything about it. That doesn't make any sense now.
No, no, they can. Like it's the same as like all the politicians. They can do something. They're all never going to get elected the next term.
So they just don't do. They don't want to do it because they're basically
They're gonna lose their job at the next election,
got you.
right? So
Okay.
someone has to take the bullet, right?
Okay.
Like our president. Like
Oh,
this
all right,
morning.
we're done.
He
See,
took it.
see how you just.
He's like, fight, fight, fight.
That's
That
it. That's
motherfucker's
it.
not
You see,
strong.
so this is when we call it quits because we are not gonna get into that. We, I will not have anybody talking about some crazy shit to us.
No, but
Uh,
same thing, yeah. But what
no,
my
but yeah,
point is like
no,
the
no,
same thing,
no.
all the
Finish up.
politics.
Finish up.
They can change stuff. They just
Yeah.
won't because they're in a it's politics just like anything
Well,
else.
okay. Well, then here's a question: do you believe that the ADA is even beneficial for dentists?
I don't know. Like
Ah,
I remember asking this question when I was in dental school to an oral surgeon, and he said they're I think the Academy of whatever their oral surgery academy
yeah,
is.
yeah.
He's
A
like, I
academy.
pay money to them every year,
Yep.
100%, and I give them more money. Why? Because they work so hard to make sure oral surgery is kept on its toes. All the doctors are on top of their shit. Like, I respect that academy. He's like,
Okay.
fuck the ADA. I will never give them a penny because they're worthless. This
Oh,
this is one of my attendings in dental school, oral surgery.
right.
So I think, and that was very, I was like, wait, what? So the specialty you spend money on, but not the whole ADA that takes care of all doctors? He's like, they don't take care of the doctors. Now, this was his statement back
Right.
like
Well, that's his opinion.
7,
That's
8,
fine.
right? But to have that strong an opinion in an academic environment, telling younger people, right? It has an implication. And so over the last 8, 10 years of me working, I kind of looked at like, and you get those blasts like, hey, we did this for like, we went to Congress and we did Dentist Day, and look at all these young dentists. They're like, they're diverse and all that stuff.
Right.
Like, what'd you do? It's like, oh, we didn't do shit.
There it
Like,
is.
not accomplished. So
No,
like,
and I actually agree because when COVID happened, we were literally just kind of floating around going, what do we do?
yeah,
Are we considered essential workers? Are we not? Can we see patients who are in pain? Can we not? Do we get PPEs? Do we not? There were so many things that the
dude.
ADA just sat around, just was kind of like, we'll get back to you guys on that.
Dude, I was in Verizon or AT&T the other day, and they had a special deal for like, hey, people who are essential workers, we'll give them a lower number. And I'm like, oh, cool. Am I part of that? And he's like, well, let's look at the list. And it's like, yeah, firefighters, all like the EMS people, I got that. But
Nurses.
they had like EMS dispatchers as well as essential workers, and then all these other people. I'm like, what about doctors? He's like, oh, yeah, no, not doctors.
No,
You
no,
guys
no.
are essential
Doctors
workers.
are. I already
You're
looked at this.
not.
So doctors that work in like hospitals are.
No, ER,
Dentists,
only the ER.
dentists are not.
Yeah, no, even the hot doctors,
Oh,
only the ER physicians and ER staff are essential workers.
oh,
So if you're a
okay.
cardiologist, you don't get that special. So it's just
AT&T
like,
has no respect for us.
nah, fuck those
Uh,
dermatologists, bitch ass skin pop pimple poppers.
well, that is what it is. But all right, cool. Hey, let's
Cool,
end it
man.
up here, and then
Yeah,
we'll regroup, and then kind of I guess go on to the next topic.
yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, it's good talking to you.
All right, brother. We'll talk.
Cheers, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Truth Be Told. The opinions on this episode are just that, our opinions. Please consult your dental professional before taking any action with your dental health. If you have any questions about anything you heard on this episode, please contact us at Real Dentist with an S. That's REAL Dentist with an S at gmail.com. We would be very happy to return any message that we receive because we love the communication that we have with our listeners.